4, 3, 2, rewind.
Co-host Derek.
Weekly Adventures, co-host Desiree. We're almost professional.
Full disclosure.
Dangerous combination. Creating content and optimizations. Got a lore video coming. Cannot wait, which is all about Brewfest and some sort of like cake. Mail on a Sunday.
News and notes.
Schedule for this week.
Hot cocoa. All these people.
Supports the show. Adventuring party.
Are you ready? Let's go. Hello, lovely listeners, and welcome to episode 133 of the Pantheon Plus Rewind, your go-to weekly podcast to recap the news and community of Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. This week, we review and give our thoughts on the latest developer livestream. We tackle adversity in the community discussion, spotlight our community creators, of course, and end with another fanfiction entry from Benonai. Put those earbuds in and hop on the treadmill. Don't forget about your New Year's resolution so soon. Join me, Desrin, and my healthy co-host, Theric, for this week's Rewind. So, have you...
Healthy, wow. You're assuming a lot credit, right? from 1 week of resolution stick-to-itiveness.
Isn't that how it works? You just, you do it for like a few weeks, and that's like the whole year, covers the whole year, right?
Yeah. No, that is true. I can't argue with that. I've been good. Fell off a little bit because my partner in crime hurt her back, so I wasn't able to like stick with it because I was like in solidarity. I am not going to go on the treadmill without you. So
oh my gosh.
Really
so yeah. All right. Blame the spouse. I get it. It
was a total excuse. It was a total nonsense excuse, but she's better now. I'm back. We're back. Doing our thing. So
you've hopped back on the, like you're going again.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Then I can't give you that much hard time.
No, you really can't. No, I expect to be fully accredited for my work here. So.
well, perfect.
How about you? How are you doing?
I mentioned I don't really do the resolution thing, but you know, I really should post stuff in the our guild fitness thing, because like I've at least tried to go on walks more these last few weeks. Just put music in and get outdoors. But I've realized I really miss like going really outdoors and backpacking. Like I need to go camping or backpacking, and
it's so good. It's so good for your, not only your physical health, but your mental health, right? Like I'm a big proponent of doing things like we have to take care of our mental health just as much as our physical health, and like things that synergy has both is like, that's gold. It's gold, man. You got to do it.
Well, you know what else is gold?
Yes, I do.
Our wonderful adventuring party. So we've got Ziplocks on the Darkmoor Rogue, Sparrow on the Elf Ranger, Bounty Code on the Human Wizard, Screech on the Scar Bard, Wiki-Woo on the Human Enchanter, Shuriken on the Dwarf Cleric, Horsosaurus on the Human Warrior, Churro Dude on the Halfling Direlord, Fury Wrath on the Archai Summoner, Pavejo on the Gnome Wizard, Acera Avienda on the Elf Ranger, Galarain Moonsong on the Elf Ranger, and Annoying Llama on the Human Monk. And Theric.
Yeah, I need to give a special shout out to Man of Rohan, who it seems I forgot to add to the Adventure Party banner last week. And I always am like mindful of, I know I'm going to forget at some point, and I did, obviously. So Man of Rohan, you get a special shout out because I neglected to put your name on the banner, and that is a whoopsie on my part. So thank you for your support, and here's your reward, your due for missing your name.
Oh man. Well, yeah, thanks everyone for everything you do for our channel, our podcasts, and showing up on Sundays and in the comments and everything. You guys are awesome. And if you'd like to join us on the adventuring party here, you can check out our Patreon for a bunch of options on the page there. Or of course we have the super chat, super thanks on YouTube, which is, either live or in the comments. And that'll get your name on that said scrolling banner. And I gotta say, like, this is the first time it's happened, so there's a really good chance that Derek won't, he won't forget you. So,
wait, hey, don't speak for me. I promise
no
nothing. I will definitely forget somebody again at some point. So, it's just the nature of the beast.
But yeah, I mean, thanks everybody. And, man, I think it's time. I think we need to hit this. Let's go.
This week in Visionary Realms News and Notes. All right, so it's Dev Stream Week, and that means we've got lots to talk about. So if you missed it, on Thursday, January 12th, we got Joppa, Ronak, and Minus giving us a look ahead at what they're planning to get done, specifically in the first quarter of 2023. So that means between now and the end of April. And that's actually a bit more specific, quite a bit more specific than we've come to expect from VR, and which I'll say is a good sign. You know, as we all know, publicly defined timeframes in VR not really compatible. Not really something that we see a lot of. They haven't really done that over the years. So maybe this quarterly preview is like a new approach they've decided to take. I feel like VR and then on Pantheon Plus U afterwards kind of buried the lead a little bit on this stream, that this timeline of a quarterly goals or quarterly plan is kind of a big deal. You know, Desrin, let's start with me asking you, were you surprised that they started the year by giving us a much more defined timeline?
Oh, because see, honestly, I don't see this as much as a timeline. I think this is more of just defining what they're working on in Q1, like kind of what to expect to hear more about. But I don't really think this was like a, you know, we will have this all finished in Q1, or like setting a date kind of a thing. Like it would be nice, but I think that's actually not the impression I get. You know,
really?
Yeah. I think
interesting because, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think they even referred to it as just like a focus for Q1, which is kind of why I have that opinion, is they kept saying the focus, you know, which I guess you could take a few different ways, but yeah.
Yeah. See, I definitely interpreted it another way. And I mean, it would be kind of weird for them to say, this is what we're like focused on. We're not committing to completing this, or we're not saying this is our goal. We're just like, here's what we're planning to do for the first quarter. To me, that rings a little bit, I don't know, a little bit pointless almost. It's like if you set your quarter, like if we had workout goals, you know, like my workout goal for the quarter one is to lose 10 pounds. But then I sort of said, no, it's not my goal. It's just, I'm thinking about losing 10 pounds in the first quarter, you know, like, I don't know about that.
Well, but it's
really
not just thinking about it. It is saying like, we are working on these things. Like, that's why I actually appreciate this method rather than having dates. Because this still gives us insight on what's going on. And after a few, you know, hopefully they do this more than one quarter, honestly. But if they do this a few quarters, we can kind of get a gist of, you know, how well we can expect things that they're working on to be finished in a certain time frame without them actually giving a time frame out. I actually prefer this because we've seen in a lot of other projects that do have a roadmap, it can get a little weird, you know, as people kind of see, you know, oh, this is what is happening this month. If it doesn't happen this month, you know, riot, you know, like.
Well, you know, it's funny you should say that. So I think, as you know, knowing sort of what our notes have in story here, I think we're going to disagree on a lot of things. Not disagree, but I think we're going to have different perspectives on things as we go through this show. So
it's perfect.
It should be kind of interesting because we're kind of looking at this differently. So let's talk about what they said about the, you know, either getting done before the end of April 2023 or focusing on up until April 2023 or during that time. You know, what was the meat of this dev stream? You know, I think there were 5 areas that they separated out and talked about. And so we'll hit every single one of them. The first one was the Vinyl post-implementation stuff. So Joppa said that now that Vinyl has functionality, its functionality has been solidly confirmed, the next step was, quote, activating the MMO-specific aspects of networking. They said the first MMO-specific aspect is the seamless zones. And we know how big of an idea, you know, we know how big they are on this idea of a world without traditional zone lines. And we've talked about what this means from a gameplay perspective, how it creates a more immersive experience when you no longer hit that loading, please wait screen all the time, as well as, you know, just making the world more dangerous because you can't escape from mobs by just zoning out or whatever. Joppa said he feels that it'll be a big moment for Pantheon when they get this implemented. And, you know, it's easy to understand why he feels this way. Immersion, challenge, those are the, you know, 2 fundamental tenets of their design. And this would hit on both of those. So he also noted that this allows for more, and I want to use quotes again, hand-drawn zone lines, which I thought was interesting. because he was sort of like referencing like they were working with rectangles. He said a lot. That's what they were sort of. I guess their zones were sort of rectangular shaped. I didn't notice that, but it was interesting to me because I had no idea that this was a limitation they were dealing with when designing the zones. I think, and the more I thought about this as I was writing this out, the whole concept of a zone may just be something we aren't really talking about as players once this is implemented, because we're not going to feel it in the game. And it's only really a term that's relevant for those developing the game. Does that make sense to you, Des?
Maybe. I think zones will still be relevant, more as like a term to describe a region, if anything. Like sure, like the zone lines might be blurred a bit, but I think it's still a helpful descriptor, sorry, for players, even if it doesn't have the same implication as a zone, like like in EQ, like you mentioned, training the zone and stuff like that. I do wonder if or how, I guess, it'll all be tied to the social things like zone chat, for example.
Right.
If there's like zones within, or like small zones, or weird shaped zones. I just wonder how they'll handle that, because I think even WoW has a pretty grid-like structure for the most part.
Yeah, I don't know. Because a lot of things come off of structured zones, right? Like seamed zones, not seamless, right? That when you in the MMO world, for people who play a lot of MMOs, we're so ingrained with the idea of this zone, that zone. There's just a lot of things that play off of it. So when this gets implemented, it's going to I think it's going to change a lot of things in terms of how it feels to play this game.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that they want to get done or work on in the first quarter is getting this implemented. And I really, again, all these things we're going to mention, I'm really hoping to see a lot of them in the pre-alpha tests, the monthly pre-alpha tests. So there'll be 4 of them between now, like in this quarter, obviously. So, that's something I definitely want to see. Another one of these post-vinyl implementation features VR said that they have targeted for the first quarter includes, quote, persistence architecture. So correct me if I'm wrong, Desmond, but this is basically like making sure your character is constantly like preserved and backed up as you play, right? Like
yeah. I mean, and all your stuff, like persistence for what's in the world and probably on your character. So just making sure that everything stays the same, which sounds very simple, is not very simple, but if anyone has experience in this, I think Steve's on it.
Yeah, so they said they have Steve Clover working on it, right? So you're right. If anybody knows how to do this, definitely he would. So, and I would say that not having my character like in all my stuff randomly deleted is
probably
fairly important.
Yeah.
Fairly, it's probably a little bit important for a MMO to be successful, because that would not go over well if that didn't work out.
We all know the pain of rollbacks. It's happened more often in games than we'd like, for sure.
Have you ever lost a character completely? Like, have you ever completely lost a character you've leveled like quite a bit and put a lot of time into?
Not a whole level, but I've been rolled back like several days before in a live game, even like so it can happen.
Yeah. I don't know if I've ever told my EQ story, but my first EQ character, I got to like level 6, 7, and then I went to Blackburrow and I fell into the snake pit there and I lost it completely. Theric 1.0 is still at the bottom of a Blackburrow snake pit. Theric 1.5 or 2.0 lived and went on to level whatever, 50. So
interesting.
Yeah, but that's not the game's fault. That's purely my fault. Now, the other thing that got mentioned was that since the refactor, actually cross-zone communication hasn't been possible. Now, VR said they believe they can get this implemented, and once that's done, Joppa hinted we'll see their often touted looking for group tool, which he, of course, described as being robust. He clarified it's not a group finder, just an enhanced means of communicating. That's the sense I got. Did you hear the same thing, Des?
Yeah, same thing. And I think the earlier they can get that LFG tool in, like, the better. At least, some form of it. I'm sure it won't be fully built out, but, something usable just to find people, right? Just get players back in the habit of forming up, using the tool, giving feedback, all that. It's going to be a big part of the game for, I would say, a majority of people. So I'm glad to hear they're working on it, but it's funny that they always have to clarify that. Like they know their audience, you know.
Yeah, they do. They always have to say like it's not a group finder. We're not doing it for you. So that's the post-final implementation stuff. That's point 1. Now, point 2 was the gathering and crafting aspects. So this, again, on their list for quarter 1, work on these gathering and crafting upgrades. And everyone's favorite master crafter, Nefel, apparently been hard at work. And VR said we're going to see improved harvesting tools implemented and gathering skill progression. So this was actually a moment that impressed me, made me kind of chuckle at the same time when they talked about the gathering animation has been synced with the player's speed, and that speed of gathering is based on your skill, apparently. So, this is like a little small thing, but it's impactful, and it actually makes me laugh when you think about you're out in the world and you're running around and you see someone like furiously hitting that ore node with their pickaxe, and you're like, damn, they're such a skilled gatherer. Look at how fast they're going. And then, of course, there's probably me like super slowly chopping a tree, right? And people are, walking by and laughing at my unskilled harvesting ways, right? And
I mean, it would be pretty funny if that's how it played out.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah. I mean, the big part of this is like, I'm really curious what all these like dynamic things that they're hinting at are. They've mentioned this like a few times of like additional things with gathering, and I don't know, it kind of feels like they're teasing that gathering might be a bit more involved eventually.
Yeah.
But
definitely.
we'll have to wait and see until all that stuff is closer. But for now, just a basic implementation like that just works is kind of what we need, and then they can work on crafting, right? Because I feel like you just need basic gathering, and then you can get crafting in and maybe finish gathering way later, right? Like. But,
sure, yeah.
I think everyone's excited about maybe crafting some stuff, and this is a step towards it.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, lots of crafters out there interested in listening very closely to that. Third point they talked about on their list to do is the artwork, and specifically some of the points of interest in Avenir's Pass. Joppa talked about Hangor. He cited Hangor. He also cited Madrun. Being set for a touch-up. Now, Madrun, we've never, ever seen anything.
Yes, we have.
When did we see
I don't think
Madrun?
it was actually said, but I'm pretty sure we have some footage of new Madrun.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, the spooky twisted trees, and I mean...
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Okay. So and it's funny because they didn't say it. I think it's just like the name of the file or like the name of the...
it's really subtle. But I mean, I jumped on it because...
So, well, whatever it looks like, apparently they're going to be working on it and touching it up. So that will be old news soon enough. He gave a couple names of some new flora, I guess. The elkhorn tree, he said, will be added. I'd have to go back and look through like concept art pieces to see if we actually have a picture of that. Yeah. But I can't think of it off the top of my mind. But more importantly, Joppa said, flora for Thronefast is going to be used in a lot of other areas. And of course, they have these kits, they can kind of apply globally to help speed up the process. I personally liked how this discussion connected to the seamless zone discussion, because Joppa said, quote, the beauty of a seamless world, end quote, is what he's going for. Things are going to be differentiated more by layout and the makeup of some of the things in the zone, how they're placed, how they're implemented. We got into a really sort of lengthy discussion, Desrin. You brought this up on Pantheon Plus U about the implications of this. I thought you had some really, really insightful commentary. So do you want to just like recap your thoughts for our listeners who maybe didn't catch it on Pantheon Plus U?
I mean, it's probably just best to check the Plus U for my actual fresh thoughts, as they're coming. But I don't know. I think it both makes sense, as far as like kind of making the world look natural. But also I'm very much anticipating something that maybe exhibits a bit more artfulness. Because currently, I mean, I guess this is a matter of opinion, but I don't think it's really that far off base. Is Thrown Fast and Avenir's Pass, as far as we've seen, they look a bit generic as far as their ground and flora assets. The color palette, it's just like kind of brown and green, so I'm really looking forward to some of the more creative zones, specifically Silent Plains. We'll see how it goes, but it's definitely something that allows them to build out faster, and the more assets they get they can start using those more widely, and hopefully kind of break up the zones a little bit more so they don't look so homogenous. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, good job. Yeah, that's the right word for what you're describing for sure. And no, you're right. I mean, it's a concern, and it's something that we'll have to wait and see. And I just, as they build out King's Reach, the whole continent, it needs to be distinct and have distinct regions like we talked about. So I think that's,
and I think
do think that's important.
It's just,
Yeah. Okay. So next one, the fourth item on their quarter one to-do list is focus on the development of Silent Plains, as you just mentioned. It is the next area they want to allocate a lot of resources to work on. And this is, definitely, I'm ready for a new place to talk about. We've talked about Thrown Fast. We've talked about AVP and Wild's End.
It feels like forever.
Yeah. Just something to talk about and dig into because, we want to see more of the area after we got that awesome wide angle shot, which we got a while ago. And now let's be clear here. This is more in line with what you were saying at the beginning. They didn't say Silent Plains is going to be done in quarter one. Even I didn't hear that. But I did hear we want to get significant progress done in the first quarter on Silent Plains. But like you say, as with everything, time will tell, and we'll see how that sort of shakes out. One of the interesting notes about Wild's End, Silent Plains that they talked about, Joppa said wind will play a big part in Silent Plains, which I thought was interesting. Yeah. So yeah, the wind shear effect is something that sounds like players are going to have to deal with in this area. We've only seen the wind shear effect once before, I believe, and that was in Sleepless's realm when they did the co-stream there, and they were all sort of getting blown around all over the place, and the wind shear effect was really strong. I don't know if that's the same thing. That's what I think it is. But it also made me remember how they said gliders will have limited use in terms of the places they function in Pantheon. But they also singled out Sky Durban as being one of those places. And yeah, Sky Durban is in Silent Plains, as I said. So I'm definitely intrigued. And, can I just say, if the wind is going to be a defining feature of Silent Plains, please, VR, put in ambient howling wind sound.
Oh my gosh.
Is the kind of thing that wraps me into a game and just completely immerses me. And I just thought of this when I was writing my notes here for the show, and I'm like, wow, can you imagine how cool that would be to have just constantly in the background? It doesn't have to be, obnoxious, just really, really subtle,
dude. This is totally off the cuff, but I've got back into Valheim recently, and just the master class in weather effects and ambiance and immersion is just, I'm like, oh my gosh, if they could even get close to this, I would be so stoked.
You can hear the wind in Valheim, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Am I? Yeah, because I was trying to remember. I'm
the wind has direction, even.
That's right. It does. And the animals react to the direction the wind is blowing?
Kind of reacts. Honestly, it's some of it's more subtle, but it's just it makes it feel like a world, and isn't that what we're going for in Pantheon, right? And
totally.
Sound
and you say
huge.
Some of it's more subtle. Yeah, when you're on your boat, it's not subtle. You can only go in the direction the wind is blowing. Trying to go in your boat against the wind in that game is like a nightmare. You're not going anywhere. You don't go anywhere. You can't do it.
Oh man, yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, put wind sounds in, please, Joppa.
Yep.
We need it.
I don't care if they're from the asset store. That's perfectly fine.
Totally fine. Even you can make them yourself. Just you're good with
just
music.
Blow into a microphone.
Yeah, just anybody can do it. Really, you don't even need a voice actor. Just
professional Foley artist,
professional wind maker. Okay, so let's move on to the last point from the Q1 focus, and that is player models. It's definitely the last but not least item, because they said that Kyle Olson, their lead programmer, is working on integrating the human models to be playable right now. They said that means animations, both active and idle, and we actually got a little small little bean dropped here, I think, from Joppa, and this resonated with me coming off playing Embers Adrift, and you'll understand why I say that in a minute. So when Joppa said skill learning animations is something he's, quote, taking a good look at. Look, if you've played Embers Adrift, you know what I'm talking about. Whoever thought I'm getting attacked by a swarm of bees animation works for learning a skill, they need to reevaluate some of their life choices. I'm just saying.
So true.
Because it's ridiculous. Just like look it up. If you haven't seen it, if you haven't played Embers, just seriously go on YouTube, like look up skill learning animation Embers Adrift. It's hilarious. I expect much better of Pantheon. So that was a little bean that we heard. Again, we also heard about the Darkmer models, how they're finished, and once the human models are implemented, the Darkmer models will follow. I feel like they remain pretty fuzzy on these from a time frame perspective, and to be honest, the ongoing sort of like, we can't wait to show you them, it's wearing a little thin. I'm a little teased out, if you will, as I said on Pantheon Plus U. We have to keep in mind there's 9 more races in Pantheon, so I really don't want to go through this 7 times more, where we have to get 6 months of teasing how much we're going to love them, and then finally see them. Again, I'm not being critical. I'm just expressing, it's just being honest about the ongoing, the forever tease is sometimes not great. And just, these better be the best damn fish elves we've ever seen from what we've heard. I don't know if you're feeling as salty about that as I am, Des, but probably not, but maybe.
Salty. Yeah. I see what you did.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna go with the pun a little more when I was writing this out. I'm like, should I completely go, whole hog on this and do the whole fish thing? But
you did say that the Darkmer are finished as well.
Yeah, I did. Okay. I got a little bit of credit.
But yeah, with this topic specifically, the Darkmer models, and just kind of the implementation in game, in total. I know Kyle's obviously ridiculously busy, and according to Minus, that is something he's working on. So we'll probably see it pretty soon, but it's been a little bit weird that we saw humans, at least in, rent, not necessarily in game yet. But we've known about the Darkmer, that they're working on them for quite a while. But they don't seem to want to show us for some reason. I'm guessing it's more just to have a reveal, hopefully with some in-game footage, right? Alongside the new humans, that's kind of the gist. Because the idea is it's supposed to be speeding up, right? They get the humans done. That took a long time getting pipelines together, getting their workflow. Darkmer, maybe a bit faster. So hopefully it just keeps speeding up, because this did take a little bit longer than it seemed like they anticipated, which I guess we're kind of used to, right? But yeah, I think a tease, it works well when it's done once, but it kind of diminishes in value each time you do it again, right?
Yes, diminishing returns on the tease value for sure. Yeah,
but hey, if the Darkmer are done or finished, you know what that means.
Well, it means a lot of good things.
Coming up next, moving on to the archive, baby. Yes, I just punched my microphone.
He's so excited. He's punching microphones like an archive would, actually. So yeah, no, you're right. You're right. The other thing we got a really substantial lore drop in this dev stream, and I don't want to get into the details too much here, because I do plan on doing a video about it to try and sort of break it down, give some context, and theory crafting, for other information for people. Just, I will say, just in terms of presentation though, it was fine. I confirmed with Minus that we're going to get a transcribed version in the newsletter, in the January newsletter, as well as the concept art pieces that were shown. That was kind enough, Minus, to confirm that during the during Pantheon Plus U, I think, or actually might have been during the actual dev stream. So that's good news. And it was a good piece of lore. Before we give our final note, our final sort of overall reactions to this stream, I'd be negligent not to say that they did include a thing for PA testers, that the upcoming session on January 28th, 29th will not have your characters wiped from the previous test, which is very, very exciting. Super happy to hear that. That's probably about as much as we can say due to NDA, but I wanted to make sure it was mentioned. So Desmond, let's wrap this news piece up with our overall impressions. As you can tell, as I've said, you kind of heard my voice. I feel like this was a tell and not a show stream for sure. And there were a lot of the same things I feel like were said last year, ramping up and leaning in. And we're going to get a bunch of memes, drop memes apparently about the lean in. I guess it's just, I'm just hoping it comes true. I really want to see them put this into action. Setting quarterly timeframes is huge. Whether that's we want to have this done by this date or we're just focused on this, there's no denying that it's good to do that. And if monthly PA tests showcase these goals, like I said earlier, I'll be a happy camper. I will be contentedly on my way. But I like when the April newsletter comes around and we get to look back, to January here, we can rate whether or not they've achieved some of their goals, whether have they completed, have they been focused on? I mean, we can kind of do that right now because it was in October. They talked about the cadence for the new player models. Yeah. And I don't think if we looked back, I don't think it would be a great look, to be honest, because I just don't think I don't think it's gone at the cadence that they sort of inferred or implied, I guess, maybe even straight out said. So I'm feeling a bit, I'll say cautiously pessimistic, you might say. How are you doing? Any sort of final thoughts here?
Oh man, I kind of feel that. I always expect stuff to be slower than outlined, but still, yeah, the character model is a great example. Those expectations kind of not quite being met as far as like time frame, at least. Like hopefully they look awesome and we're all like, okay, it was worth it. But yeah, things are speeding up for sure. And I can't help but point out that it does make sense that we didn't have a lot to show this stream, after December was just like packed with stuff. And before the team presumably took a break.
Right.
Still though, seeing a replay of the dungeon stream, like without anything like new in game, it was a little rough, especially because like we didn't even get anything like out of game either. It was, we got some new concept art and lore. That's technically new, but I think most people like this was supposed to be, hey, we want to show, not tell, and then the first stream is all tell, and so
it's just a little bit of keep holding your breath, right? Just we're not there yet to where we get to see something new yet. Maybe next month.
Yeah,
we'll see.
And having said that, I like hearing what they're focused on for the next few months. Like again, I don't take that as a timeline. I take it as like we're just focusing on these things and that's it. But there's a lot that they talked about that would really push the game forward if they can accomplish them in Q1, for sure. But for now, it kind of looks like this month we're getting, as you said, a lot of tell, not much show, since, next week is another tell kind of show, right? Parting the veil,
yeah.
Which is going to be great. But again, it's another tell. And I think really I'm just looking forward to the newsletter. It sounds like the newsletter is going to have a lot of more like solid stuff for us. But unfortunately that's, several weeks out. So, but we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. So so that's the wrap up of the dev stream from this week, and that's the news section. Now for notes, we're kind of winging it here because I don't have the Pantheon Plus U calendar for the week, Pantheon Plus calendar for the week in front of me because we didn't get that done in time. But I do know that on Tuesday next week we are doing the grading stream for Embers Adrift, and I know I've talked about this before, but it's going to be fun, man. It's going to be spicy. It's going to be up and down. We're going to have haters and lovers and all in between. We're going to talk about that animation because it's so ridiculous.
I thought you were about to start singing the Rainbow Connection there.
I don't know what that is.
Oh
Should
my
I?
God. Oh, never mind. Just keep going.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So that's Tuesday night. That'll be 9 p.m. Eastern on our Pantheon Plus Twitch channel. So make sure you come and stop by and give your thoughts on Embers or on what you think of our play sessions of it. Of course, Monday night, I'm going backwards in time now, is Drac and his crew playing Dark Age of Camelot on the Eden server. That is midnight Eastern on the Pantheon Plus Twitch channel. I know that RedbeardFlynn has a video coming out next week. It's talking about the worst RPG of all time, or what did he call it? Some of the worst RPGs,
It's something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. He's talking about Sacred 3, and Desmond, you and I were talking about this before we started recording, and you played that game. I didn't play any of the Sacred series.
I rather enjoyed it, but apparently I'm in the minority.
Apparently it's got like super bad reviews on Steam. Like Steam, it's overwhelmingly negative on Steam, but who knows about Steam reviews too, right? It's not exactly a metric, but I'm sure RedbeardFlynn will dive into it fully and hilariously as he is wont to do. On Thursday, there's no MMORPG 201 show on Thursday because we are starting a new game the following week. So we're going to take a 1 week off on the 201 show. And then I believe there will be another Cringe Pony TV episode on Saturday night. I don't have confirmation of that, but if Nathan Napalm is sticking to his usual schedule, it will be Saturday at midnight Eastern, 11 p.m. Central Time. So get your cringe on there. And after winging it, hopefully I covered enough. Hopefully I got everything. That's going to be it for this week.
Isn't there something on Thursday? Don't we have Parting the Veil and plus you
this
too? This is why we don't wing it, because Derek doesn't remember things like that. No, it's all good. On Thursday, presumably at 6 p.m. Pacific time, they'll be doing the Parting the Veil. Keep an eye out for the announcements on that. But immediately after the Parting the Veil live, we'll be doing a Plus You 2, hopefully with Redbeard and Man of Rohan. I need to make sure that they're up to it. But one way or another, we'll be doing the community after show to recap what they're talking about with fractures and all that stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, good job. Thank you for saving this segment, Desmond. You would have, I would have been so, I would have felt terrible if I had
I'm sure we'll have a graphic by the time this goes up. So
yeah, the graphic, you'll be seeing it, but we need reminders. We need physical evidence, or else we just forget these things, or at least I do. So not Desmond. So anyway, now that is really it for this week's news and notes. When the Pantheon community speaks, we listen. So let's dig into the forums and fan projects to see what the discussion's all about.
All right. I thought I'd mix up the community discussion a little this time and pull a topic from our friend and ally, Mr. RedbeardFlynn, as he's just put out a video in a kind of response to some points made by Josh Strife-Hayes, and the video is called Classic MMOs Feel Better. So to give a quick recap, in case you haven't seen the video, Redbeard grabbed some quotes from Josh that pretty much add up to, I'll really try to summarize this here, but Josh is kind of saying the reason classic MMO players have so much nostalgia is because of the adversity that was involved. Whether that be challenge or just inconvenience, but one way or another, adversity. But that leads to more reward, just as kind of a human thing. On the other hand, modern MMOs kind of appeal to more people and have more retention because they try to remove adversity, either by lowering the difficulty, of the majority of the game at least, or with a lot of quality of life features and convenience. But there was a quote that Red disagreed with, which is that because there are so many options for MMOs these days, players that do encounter adversity are kind of destined to just leave for something easier. So to Red's point, he thinks there's actually a lot of people that embrace adversity for the greater reward. For example, with the popularity of games like Elden Ring, which may actually indicate that a classic MMO might be more popular and have more retention than Josh Strife Hayes seemed to expect. Okay, so that's a bit to unpack. So I guess the summarized version again is: do you think that most players that encounter adversity are pretty much destined to take the path of least resistance, or do you think Pantheon might break the trend somehow, like Elden Ring and other games have recently, that, at least by sales numbers, seems to indicate, a rather large audience of people willing to take the stairs, instead of the elevator, so to speak?
That's a perfect analogy. Absolutely perfect. Yeah, I mean, I think about this a lot. I do actually spend a lot of time thinking about this exact question, and I'm glad that they had a discussion, or there's a video that discusses it. So yeah, will people take the stairs if they know that, there's benefits to taking the stairs? And, so this comes down to a question of what is the player demographic? Who makes up the majority of people playing MMOs or even video games in general these days? Are they people who, want, challenge, want reward based on challenge, or they just want a fix? They just want to play a game that is like hits them, and they just have some fun. They're not like, they're looking for a chill, relaxed experience that isn't going to, task them with anything. I've always had an optimistic view of this, where I think if a challenging game is done the correct way, it can be successful. I think the problem is that a lot of games confuse challenge with being obstructionist, or being putting barriers in your way that aren't part of the challenge you're trying to overcome. They just complicate
just annoyances,
the experience. Right. Annoyances, yeah. Like, so I think it takes a real skill to make a game that's challenging without being obstructionist. And I know I've heard Josh Strife Hayes make this argument before. He's done some other videos that are sort of similar, where he's like, no, people just move on. Your game has to appeal to the most people, or has to remove every barrier, or else people just move on to find a game that doesn't have that barrier. You know what I mean?
Yep. Basically.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically what it boils down to. But I truly believe, as somebody who has, sort of been into what people do, like my educational background, is in sociology and other sort of human sciences. And I've always been interested in what people are motivated by, how people behave, what people do. And I do truly believe that people want to feel challenged and overcome challenges. That's what games are. That's really what games are. The earliest games are created obstacles for us to overcome. You look at whatever, you can define a game in so many different ways, but like when you take that out of it, if there's no challenge, or there's nothing pushing back against you, I think that ceases to be a game, and then it just becomes like it's just something else. I don't know what it is. So, what does that mean for the MMO landscape? I believe that, like I said earlier, Pantheon needs to embrace the concept that people like to be challenged and get rewards, but also don't want to feel like they're, being blocked for the sake of being blocked, just because it's part of like their tenet, right? Like, don't challenge me for no reason. Challenge me to, come up with a solution to a problem. It's so stupid, but Wordle. I play Wordle every morning. I've always liked puzzles. And for me, I'm speaking for myself personally, not speaking for everybody else. I love puzzles. I will do puzzles because I feel like they sort of take my brain and they awaken my brain a little bit. And I like that feeling. So, even Wordle's a stupid little game, but look at how popular it is. My whole family plays Wordle. And this is like, me and my wife, we're this different generation. My kids are teenagers. They play it. My mom plays it. She's of a different generation. And so it's like games can be challenging and appeal to a broad spectrum of people.
Oh, yeah.
Challenge isn't the common denominator that pushes people away. It's bad design that pushes people away.
Yeah, and that I think is a key part of this discussion is adversity. And I really like that was the word that was used, because adversity doesn't have to just mean challenge. It can mean time investment. It can mean commitment, like having to log in every day for your dailies. That kind of crap. I mean, stuff. No, I'm openly salty about that. Screw dailies. Sorry,
dailies.
Our
Cheers
audience, but yeah. There's a comment, actually a lot of comments here, from people kind of all across a lot of backgrounds, but a lot of folks that played the old games and have great memories of the old games, right? That have changed. And so I want to pull one of these here from Guilty Light. And I'll just read the whole thing here. But it says, for me, I can't conflate difficulty and time sunk anymore. A big part of it is being, married, having a career, etc. I love that. Can't bat phone Fadedar. I can't sit around for 4 hours trying to put a group together. I just don't have the time. And even if I did, I'm constantly thinking, but I could just play Neo 2, or which is a Souls-like, or
right.
practice a fighting game, or just something else. But single player game kind of comes up here. I kind of add in that, but it's they also say it's become a problem even in games like Final Fantasy 14 while leveling alts. This person enjoys it, but they do enjoy. But do I enjoy doing 4 dungeons as much as beating a new boss in, said Souls-like game? Do I enjoy it as much as grinding in Vampire Survivors? Or do I enjoy it as much as having a session of D&D? So I think the main point here is that even for people that want a challenge, they may not even look into the MMO space, solely on account of time sink and that kind of a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think what they're getting at there is, as I have less energy now than I did 20 years ago, for sure. I just don't have the energy to do some things. And yeah, I get that, man. Like there's times when I log on and let's see, I could play Embers Adrift and I could, find a pug and do that. Or I can play, just a cheap, a little indie game that I picked up on Steam for $5 that looks interesting. I want to try. I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to try that. I don't feel like doing the whole Ember just routine where I have to look for a group and then we got to get set up and figure out where we're going to go. Like that just seems like a lot of work. I get it. And that's an MMO thing. That's an MMO problem of a group-centric MMO. And 100% that's a Pantheon issue they're going to have to deal with. I've come to the conclusion after, following this game for so long and thinking about this game a lot, obviously, that they can overcome. It can be done. It's a matter of modernizing the MMO genre. We talked about it in the previous section. How are you going to find a group? What's their robust tool for making you connect with other people and making that relatively, effortless, I guess, not in terms of doing it for you, but how can they remove the friction of that?
Right. It's just a scary term for a lot of people, right? Like remove the friction. It's like, oh no.
Right.
But
yeah.
In certain things, like you want to put, I might put it this way. You want to put the friction where it's, I can't even say this out loud.
Where are you going with this? This is I'm fascinated by where you're going with this.
I won't say it that way just for the sake of our chat. It's,
say it.
You want to put the friction where it serves best. Like, okay. You don't want friction to be getting up, together with other people, because that's annoying. You want friction in combat. You want it to be difficult.
Right.
You want, things to feel dangerous and that kind of a thing. So it's like the placement of the adversity in the game, I'll say, is extremely important. And I think I'd add to that in saying that Just like you're not always in the mood for like embers grinding or something, the better that Pantheon can serve both that frame of mind and the I want to join a 6-person group and do a dungeon all in one game, that's really important. And I think that is a key component to how they might be able to get around this idea that, well, a lot of people are just going to go elsewhere. But if you can also serve like people that are just like, I only have like 30 minutes, like, but still have something to do in game that is like either relaxing or, somehow progressive, even if it's not like crazy, is so important.
Yeah. It's very important, and I just had a really interesting thought as you were saying that, because one of the things in Embers Adrift that when we've been playing that I've noticed is that like my game crashed the other night when we were grouped up and I came back in and I was still grouped. Like we were still grouped. What if, even just a simple thing like that in Pantheon where you were with, let's say you found a great group and you said, okay, like we're all going to log out, but let's do this again tomorrow. And you logged back in and you were still in the same group. Like the group stayed together while you all went offline.
Dude, I wasn't even going to go here, but you forced my hand. Caravans and Brotherhoods in Vanguard, man.
Yes.
They literally, one system, just to refresh people, Caravans basically made it so if you all log off, the next time you log in, you have the option to join your caravan leader or go to wherever they were last. So it basically is a way for at least, a collective group of people to try to always be in the same place. Which, in a large world, that really matters. And then Brotherhoods are basically like a persistent group where you're always sharing XP, which a lot of people complain about, potentially having issues for like, RMT and bots and stuff. But like the way that actually like plays out is I have like 5 or 6 people that I love grouping with all the time. We just can't play together, but we want to progress at the same rate. I don't care if I get less XP when I'm logged on, if I'm on 4 times as much as the other people.
Right.
I just want us to play together.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Right.
And that means
it's a cost that you're willing to take, right? It's a cost you're willing to pay.
Yeah.
For the convenience of a static, stable, continually connected group, and removing the effort needed to completely reform that group.
And also mentoring. I just got to throw it in there, But yeah, so I want to get to another really great, large comment, but a great comment by someone named Faded Shade, also in the comment section of the video, saying, comparing adversity in single player games to MMOs, I feel you can't do. They're very different beasts. In a single player game, it doesn't matter how you play it or how much you suck or whatever. No one is going to even comment on that unless you stream yourself to, dying 100,000 times in Elden Ring. But that's a choice if you want to do that, but you don't have to. In MMOs, however, a good amount of the game is spent around other people, be it in dungeons, raids, or just running around cities, where there you're expected to know your game, know your class, everything. There's no room for being new in the majority of the social sphere. You screw something up, most people will just call you out, tell you that you're a noob, and they say, let's take WoW for an example. It has add-ons that specifically point out every single mistake someone does. And that information, it's not used in a constructive way. They say this is the nature of the modern gamer, it seems. And this, they suspect, is also why more and more MMOs can be basically played solo all the way until raids, something that, wasn't possible with the old school ones, or at least it was a very, very long grind to do. They think the aspect of having your skills judged by others has quite an impact on many players, even though it might be hard for them to admit it. No one likes to feel weak or small in modern MMO cultures. Modern MMO cultures can definitely do that to many. So just to add that kind of layer to the conversation of, being in an MMO, you're in a social space, and that comes with expectations, Yeah.
Look, I'm not judging anyone. I don't want to be perceived as judging. But here's what I'll say to that is that, yes, it's not a good feeling when you feel like you've, done something in a social situation that is less, or you're just not as skilled, or you get called out. But you're also, if you take that away, you're sacrificing the immense feeling of pride that you get when you succeed at something in a group setting. So I guess what we're saying is we're willing to, we'll pay the price of avoiding failure, of avoiding awesome shared success, and just have like solo success at the cost, because we're too afraid to fail in a social situation. We want our failures to be private, and our successes to also be private. I don't know, man. I guess it's just a difference in personalities and people, is that I will take the sting of a group failure so I can potentially get the amazing feeling of a group success. And the fact that there's add-ons for WoW that tell you everything you did wrong, I don't, I'm not a WoW player. I don't know that specific add-on, but I suspect what the purpose of that is not to criticize, but to help people improve their gameplay.
Yeah. But
I would also say,
it's not always used like
you're taking it too personally. Like, it's not about calling you a noob, or like, it's not about making you fun of you, or like downgrading you. It's like trying to help you, be a better player. And if you're playing, a group-centric game or a group-based game, you should hold yourself to that expectation. You should hold yourself to that standard of, I can at least be improving, to help my group. I wish there was an add-on for WoW that told you all the things you were doing right. And you could say it's the same thing, right? You could make the argument, well, it's just
I don't think that's the same. I think it is different.
Well, then there should be a mod that says you did really well on this, this, and this, and this, and then your group leader, whoever's you're grouped with, should be the one to say, and there's always room for improvement. You could have done this better. I just, it's just, I guess, different people are different, and I understand that. I'm not judging. I'm saying, for me, I always will take the risk of failure for the potential for great reward every day, and twice on Sunday. So, it's an interesting comment.
To bring it all back, do you think that is the case for, I'll just loosely say, the majority of the MMO audience, like old and young? I got to be super clear on that, because a lot of these comments are from people that enjoyed EQ or old stuff.
This is everybody. This isn't just old or young. I mean, this is everybody.
But do you think a majority of people will see the long-term reward for the kind of short-term trials?
No, not right now. I think Pantheon can change that. I mean, again, maybe I'm just being overly optimistic. Yeah, I know. As I said it, I'm like, I don't know. Maybe.
That's rather lofty.
The majority is hard. It's hard to say majority. It's because it's like, I've used this analogy before, but it's like saying, do you think more people would choose to make a fine meal, or would they rather just eat at McDonald's if the cost was the same? Like, I think the convenience of McDonald's and fast food wins out a lot of times, just because it's convenient and easy and brainless. Like,
that's a great analogy. It really is.
$10 for a couple Big Macs, or $10 for a really nice stir fry, but you got to make the stir fry yourself. People are going to take the Big Macs. I mean, the majority, yes. So, but I'm of the opinion that there's enough people who will take the option to make a nice meal to make a game successful, to make a game like Pantheon successful. That's been my opinion, and I feel strongly about that.
I actually share that, because I would definitely say the majority of people, MMO players, and this isn't to like discredit anyone, like, if people like what they like, that's totally fine. But from my experience playing a lot of MMOs, with all sorts of people, I think they do gravitate towards exactly what Josh Strife Hayes was posing. And so I also disagree with Red a bit here in saying that I don't think the success of Elden Ring and games like this indicate success of Pantheon. I think there are, like you said, enough people that are seeking something like this that will enjoy Pantheon, and definitely more people than I would say are just relegated to the classic MMO genre. I think Pantheon will spread its tendrils a bit further than that. However, I don't think it's something that, 6 out of 10 people would like Pantheon over said other MMO that has all this convenience and, whatever people are seeking. So, yeah, but great discussion.
Yeah, really good discussion. Really enjoyed that. We usually do this like once or twice a year where we get into this kind of a conversation about, the future and potential for Pantheon to be, how big can it be? How successful can it be, right? And I love this discussion because it's fundamental to what we do and why we do what we do, why we're here doing this podcast right now. So it's fun and I enjoy it and I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, and actually, if you guys haven't seen Red's video, definitely go check it out. I'll say comment on his video first, but if you have specific thoughts for me and Theric, definitely comment them on YouTube here as well, because it's just it's a deep topic, and I'd love to hear what everyone has to say, and I'm sure Red would as well. Like I was gonna say, like from what I read in the comments, like actually most people disagreed with Red, so we'll see how it plays out, as more people watch it. But yeah, thanks Red for making the video, and I think that's gonna be it for this week's community discussion. The Pantheon community is full of cool projects, new people, and things that are just worth sharing. What's this over here? Look at that. So let's see what we can find in this week's Community Spotlight. All right, super short Community Spotlight this week. I'm guessing folks are still working on their dev stream videos and stuff. But
yeah, most likely, yeah.
But we've got to at least shout out the little bit that we can. Okay, so first off, this is the easy one. Amensol's Focus, Bonds of Freedom by Benonai, the final chapter of this fan fiction series, and I don't know what else to say. He's got it linked on Pantheon.plus. I have it in the show notes down below. And he's got the nice PDF and everything, right? So very friendly to to those that would like to read it.
Yeah, I love that he puts it in PDF form too. That's super convenient for me because it reads on my devices so much better.
Yep. And then next we've got Sir Medieval just throwing a short out here, kind of a teaser for the next lore chapters, backstory of the Dwarves and the Elves in Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, MMORPG. I love that he's getting more into it. I love the cover of Misty Mountains Cold that he threw in there, which, I mean, it's whatever. With all the, I'm like, there was like no Pantheon in this except for like a concept shot, but it's just a short, to promo. But I'm really curious to see how he does the dwarves and the elves, because I mean the dwarves specifically, man, they have I love their backstory, and I'm sure he will as well. Kazas is just as the kids would say, Giga Chad. Oh God, I never thought that word would get uttered on the rewind, but apparently it's a matter of time.
Been done. Too cool for my blood.
But actually, that is going to be it for this week's Community Spotlight.
And now, story time from our fans of fiction. All right, so we are continuing to read Chapter 1 of Benonai's tale, Amensol's Shadow. Now, just before we get to the little recap of what we learned last week, I want to say that, it was brought to my attention by Benonai that Amensol's Shadow, the entirety, is a massive tome. And, to read the whole thing would be ridiculous on the show, where we would be here for several years just reading this one thing. And I don't want to do that to everybody because, just to keep the show variety based and read some other stuff too. So we are going to finish chapter 1,
but to give a little taste, right? Like so people get into it.
Yeah, get into it. See if you like the writing style. See if you like the story he's telling. I mean, I can't see how you wouldn't, but that's just me. So we are not going to read the whole thing. We're just going to do chapter 1. So we got this week, and I think next week and maybe 1 week afterward, depending on how I want to split it up, because I try to keep these 6 minutes or less. I don't want everybody to be here for 20 minutes listening to this. But this week, so we're going to recap last week on the intro to this. We learned that we met Amensol, And basically, we learned that the humans have just arrived on Terminus. The collision has just happened. It's disarray. Camp is in disarray. There's chaos. People are basically fending for themselves. Everybody's just trying to survive. They talk a lot, and Benonai does a great job of referencing the lore, talking about the cursed frost being this terrible winter and how they're struggling to really deal with that. So please enjoy the second part of Chapter 1 of Amensol's Shadow by Benonai. Self-preservation kept most people's attention, enough to keep out any derisiveness. While most all were worried about today, Amensol was confident of today and planning for what comes after. A young man came running up as best he could through the white powder in the middle of the camp. He seemed to Amensol to be happier than the current situation would require. "Sir, I have news." "That's quite obvious to us," Amensol shot back, glancing over at his lieutenant. "Speak on, son." The young man hesitated for a second, puzzling over whether Amensol was joking or not. He decided he was, so he continued, "So this may be the best encampment yet. Down at the end of the camp is literally an entire felled forest. I was thinking it might be due to the collision and everything." "You have a gift of perception, son," Amensol said, now just enjoying goading him on. The young scout continued, "Yeah, so there should be enough timber there to keep the fires burning for months and to build permanent structures. Half of them are even already stripped from the destruction." The scout seemed especially proud to bear this news to his leader. Amensol motioned with his finger for the boy to come closer. The old warrior flashed another slight grin, obviously delighting in the conversation as much as Amensol. Amensol put his hand on the boy's shoulder and asked, "Son, how many eyes do you have?" The scout shrugged. "Well, 2, sir." "And how many did you use to find such a treasure?" Amensol continued. "Both, I guess," he said as if trying to pass a test. "Well then," Amensol said, "let that be a lesson to you. Never enlist half or less of what you have, lest you have less than half of what you could, more or less." At this, the quiet warrior burst out in a jolly bark before retreating back to his stone-faced gaze. Yes, sir," the scout said, completely confused. Amensol smiled warmly at him and said, "Please, sir, take me to your 2-eyed treasure, since there seems to be too much for just one." Down the progressively worn path, through the center of the camp, and down the knoll from there, it was, in fact, as the scout had told them. Amensol sent the scout back up with his companion to begin gathering men for the harvest. As the men left his presence, Amensol began walking down the hill, closer to the nest of fallen trees. As he walked, a solitary beam of sunlight danced off some object buried in the pile of arbor. Amensol climbed through and over branches to unmask the treasure. As he approached, his eye spotted a young boy laying in a hollow spot at the bottom of the pile. Fearing the worst, he slid faster over and under, trying to reach the poor boy when he was frozen by a low, gruff voice. "Stop!" It was then that Amensol noticed the boy was not alone, but was laying on a man covered with brown fur trappings, his hair white, his cheeks depressed, and the weary look to his eyes conveyed to Amensol that this man's turmoil most likely did not begin at the collision, but had merely followed him here from his previous life in Vas Demeth. "Take no more steps," the man cried. His eyes peered into Amensol's. Then Amensol followed the old man's eyes, slowly down onto the leaf and snow-covered ground at the old man's feet. There it was, what appeared to be a white-colored adder, coiled and irritated by the unwelcome visitors. "I need you to take the boy." The old man slowly pointed to a branch in the higher ground around to his left. There was a branch where one could lean over and just reach down far enough to pass the child up. As Amensol worked his way quietly around to the side, he tried to ease the old man. "So, what's your name, uncle? How long have you and the boy been out here alone?" The man answered, "We found the encampment last night. We've been wandering for some time now. My grandson is all I have left. I just need him to survive. Please, be careful. Please." "Don't worry, uncle. We will get you both out just fine. Almost there." Amensol almost whispered, stepping very purposely over the slippery bark-stripped branches surrounding the small alcove. The white snake seemed uninterested in all but the old man laying at his doorstep. Every slight squeak coming from Amensol's shoes made the snake flinch ever so slightly. "So, you didn't tell me your name." "I will tell you once we are free. I have no need for your name, Amensol of Vas Demeth. I know you well, the old man said cryptically. At this, he took his gaze off the trouble in front of him and gazed at Amensol. Amensol stopped his progress, froze by the weight of the man's words. He continued, Ah, yes, there he is, the real Amensol. Will we see him again, or no more? Amensol remained still, staring at the only man since the collision who seemed to know or to care. All right, that is the lore you know, and that is the end of the show. And definitely we were working at the last minute to get our notes in, because for the outro I wrote whatever.
Yeah, I saw that. Just whatever.
Whatever. I have no notes about what to say here. So yeah, a good show, Des. I really liked that discussion. That was a lot of fun. I feel vented a little bit about that.
Good,
it's always fun to talk about. Yeah. And hopefully you all enjoyed listening to us. And again, stay tuned. We'll be back next week, same time, same place. Hope to see you this week coming up during the grading session for Embers Adrift, and I guess, of course, Pantheon plus you too, right, Desiree?
Yeah.
So, So Desiree, thank you so much for being my sidekick and being my co-host here on the show. Really appreciate it, of course. Thank you to everyone else. And with that, we'll see you next week.
So long, everyone.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Pantheon Plus Rewind. Pantheon Plus is not affiliated with Visionary Realms. Be sure to check out our Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube channels under the name Pantheon Plus. You can follow Theric at Pantheon Theric on Twitter, and Desrin at DesrinDoes also on Twitter. And you can stay up to date with all things Pantheon at www.pantheon.plus. Until next time, cheers, and thanks for listening.